everyone. Welcome to Story Time. I'm glad you've joined me. We are going to continue with Little Pilgrim's Progress. I wonder who little Christian is going to meet this evening. And of course, we will have a devotion from Indescribable. So, settle down, get comfy, as am I, and we will begin. We are on chapter 13. Formalist and Hypocrisy. When little Christian had gone some distance from the place where the three boys lay sleeping, he turned and looked back, thinking that perhaps they might now be fully awake and more anxious to be freed from their iron fetters. But he could not see anything of them, and he was just moving on again when he heard a noise on his left hand and saw two boys climbing up the wall. They both dropped over into the way of the king, and seeing little Christian, they ran up to him. "Where have you come from?" he asked. The boys, whose names were Formalist and Hypocrisy, answered, "We've been living in the land of vainglory, but we're now going to the celestial city to see the king." "But don't you know," said little Christian, "that you should have come in at the wicket gate?" "Oh," cried the boys, "that is much too far from our country. We just made a shortcut across the fields and came over the wall." Little Christian thought that the king would not like people to begin their pilgrimage in this way, and he said, "I'm afraid you ought not to have done so." "Oh, don't you bother about it," they said. "Our people never go round the gate. Besides, what does it matter, as long as we get onto the right road? You came in by the gate, and we came over the wall, and now we're all exactly in the same place." "I don't think you ought to have done it," said little Christian. "What nonsense," they replied. "We are just as good pilgrims as you are, except that you have such fine clothes, which very likely somebody had to give you because your own were not fit to be seen." This was a very rude and unkind speech, and little Christian felt inclined to answer back in the same way. But he had read in his book that the king's servants ought always to speak gently, even when angry words were spoken to them. So he waited a minute and then said quietly, "That is quite true. My things were all spoiled and shabby, and the king gave me these clothes himself. It was very kind of him, and I'm very glad he did it, because now I am sure that when I get to the city, he will know that I'm one of his little pilgrims. And the Shining One has set the king's mark on my forehead, and I have a roll that I am to show at the end of the journey. You have not any of these things, because you did not come in at the wicket gate." But the boys only laughed, so little Christian left them and walked on by himself. Presently they all came to the foot of the hill called Difficulty. The way of the king led over the hill. It was very rough and very steep, but little Christian knew that he must not turn away from it. A spring of cool water was flowing just by the wayside, so he was very thirsty. He took a refreshing drink and then began to climb the rocky path. Formalist and Hypocrisy were a little way behind Christian, and when they came to the hill they saw two paths which turned one to the right and the other to the left out of the straight road. "What is the good of climbing up that steep place?" they said. "These two paths are smooth and easy, and as they go round the hill they must come into the king's way again on the other side." So Formalist said, "I will go along this path," and Hypocrisy said, "I will go along that one." And the boys parted, believing that they would meet again very soon. Now, if they had entered by the wicket gate, they would have known, as little Christian did, that the straight road was the only safe one. But I'm sorry to tell you that both these foolish boys were lost, because they had not taken the trouble to obey the king and begin their pilgrimage in the right way. Formalist had entered the path of danger, and very soon he found himself in a great wood. He wandered about for many nights and days, but he could not find his way out of it, and so at last he died of hunger and cold. The path of destruction which hypocrisy had chosen was no better. It led into the midst of some dark mountains, where the boy went up and down until his foot slipped and he fell, wounding himself upon the sharp rocks, so that he too perished miserably. The Hill of Difficulty. Little Christian found the path up the hillside a very hard one. It was covered with rough stones and sharp pieces of rock, which hurt his feet, and it became steeper and steeper as he went on, until at last he was obliged to creep along on his hands and knees. The sun was now shining very brightly, for it was in the middle of the day, and its rays fell upon little Christian and made him feel hot and tired. What should I have done, he thought, if I had had to climb this hill yesterday? I could never have carried my burden up such a dreadful road. But when he was about halfway up the hill, the path became easier. He was able to walk again, and the stones did not seem to be quite so sharp. Still, it was hard work climbing, and when he came presently to a little shady arbour, he was very glad indeed. This arbour had been built by order of the king, so that his pilgrims might have a place in which to rest on their way over the hill. Little Christian went in and sat down. It was cool and quiet, and he thought he would now have time to look at the roll that the Shining One had given to him. So he took it out and read in it for a little while. Then, instead of making haste to the top of the hill, he sat idly in the arbour looking at his new clothes and thinking of many things, until his eyes closed and he fell asleep. He did not wake until late in the afternoon, and when he looked at the sky, he saw that it was already beginning to grow crimson with the sunset. He started up and began to walk as quickly as he could. Before he reached the top of the hill, he met two boys running very fast indeed. Their faces were white with fear, and their whole bodies were trembling, but when they saw little Christian, they stopped to speak to him. "What is the matter?" he asked. "You're running the wrong way." "Oh!" cried the eldest, untied like little Christian. "Oh!" cried the eldest, whose name was Timorous. "We were going to the city of the king and had climbed up this terrible hill, but the farther we go, the more danger we find, so we're hurrying it home again." "Yes," said the other one, who was called Mistrust. "There are two great lions lying just in the way, and we don't know whether they're asleep or not, but I'm sure if we try to pass them, we shall be torn to pieces." Then little Christian began to feel frightened too, and he said, "What shall I do?" "Why, come back with us," said Timorous. "You cannot be so foolish as to venture near those savage beasts." "I don't know," replied little Christian. "If I go back, I shall never see the king." "Well, you will not see him if you go on," said Mistrust, "for the lions will kill you." But little Christian remembered that Evangelist and Goodwill and the kind interpreter had all told him that, although he might often be frightened and in trouble, the king would surely help him and take care of him. "I don't think I will turn back," he said. "The lions may not be awake. Let us all go together." "Oh no," cried Timorous and Mistrust. "We dare not. We should just make the best of our way home again, and be very thankful when we get there safely." So they ran down the hill and left little Christian to go on his way alone. He could not help being frightened, and he thought, excuse me, he didn't yawn. He could not help being frightened, and he thought, "I will look at my roll and see whether there's anything written in it about these lions." But when he put his hands into the breast of his jacket, the roll was not there, and though he felt carefully among his clothes, he could not find it anywhere. "Where can it be?" he said, and he stood still to think how he could possibly have lost it. He was in a very great trouble, for he remembered that the Shining One had told him to take care of the roll, for he would be asked to show it at the gate of the Celestial City. "I cannot go without it," he cried. "Oh, what shall I do?" And the tears began to roll down his cheek. Well, we're going to have to find out what happened on Wednesday. Let's have our devotion called Shooting Down the Big Bang. Every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. And that's from Hebrews 3, verse 4. This might come as a surprise, but not everyone believes God created the universe. Some people believe it just sort of happened all by itself. They believe the whole ginormous universe began as a tiny hot mass of matter, just a few millimeters in size. That tiny mass exploded out into what they call the Big Bang, an explosion so huge and so fast that it created the entire universe in a split second. Some people also believe that life began as evolution. They claim when the Big Bang created the Earth, there were certain chemicals in the water. These chemicals, proteins, amino acids and such, sort of sloshed around in a kind of soup. Lightning hit the soup just right, and the first cells of life suddenly sprang into being. After a long time and a lot more evolution, these cells grew and changed until they became plants and trees, puppies, elephants, eagles, crocodiles, and you and me. I think the Big Bang was actually when light went zip-zapping across the universe after God said, "Let there be light." And unlike slow evolution, creation was probably pretty noisy with all the roaring and chirping after God made birds, fish, and animals of every kind. And when God said he'd like some people too, some praising from Adam and Eve added to the sounds. Every type of creation, every great painting, building, and book has a creator. Life, the earth, and the universe are no different. It wasn't some huge cosmic accident, and neither are you. You are part of the creation of the grandest creator of all, God. Be amazed. Evolution says everything just sort of fell perfectly into place to create life. Try this experiment. Grab a puzzle, a jigsaw, it doesn't matter how many pieces, and throw the pieces in the air. Did they put themselves together? No. Try it again and again. Still not right? If a simple puzzle can't put itself together, how can 37.2 trillion cells of a person put themselves together without someone putting them in just the right place? Something to think about there, isn't there? Lord, your creation is so amazing and so detailed. I know it wasn't just some accident. Thank you for creating me to be part of it. Right, let's finish with a prayer, and we are going to read the Green Prayer this evening. So join me. Dear God, please look after all those who are sick. Give them the treatment and help they need to recover. Send your healing power into all the world. Yes, God, we do thank you that you are all powerful, that you can heal people and you can make the sick better. And God, we pray that that would be the case. We thank you that you are the creator, that you created all things, not as a random mishmash of stuff, but specifically for a function and completely. So we thank you that we are part of your creation and you are the amazing creator. Thank you, God, that as our amazing creator, you are with us at all times, caring for us, keeping a watch out for us and loving us so much. Amen. So join me again on Wednesday for more stories. So until then, have a great few days and I will see you soon. Bye.